Okay, we're live on the red carpet, Mr. Hebsher.
This is very exciting. I'm tell you though, I'm bummed out. I was all excited about the show. Not that I'm not excited about it. I'm just it's a little more tempered because of the death of Walter Gretzky.
Right.
And you just mentioned to me Chris Schultz. Man,
yeah, heart attack, 61 years old.
It's almost like, does a day go by where somebody, one of our heroes, someone that we admired, passes away? It's almost a daily thing now. In fact, more than one person on the same day, which, takes over the mindset. Certain things aren't that important anymore. Now we're celebrating or recognizing the life of somebody that, had an effect on us.
No doubt.
So when I woke up this morning and found out, I was kind of, what am I going to do today? Well, what am I going to do? Heck, I spent a fair bit of time with Walter Gretzky. So why not tell a few stories? You've got that piece of audio that I sent you?
Got it all loaded up. I'm just tweeting at you right now, your YouTube link.
I'm going to tweet that we're live?
Yeah, it'll be in your Twitter stream in 8 seconds.
This is great. My Twitter stream in 8 seconds. Oh, man.
Okay, it should be there right now.
There it is.
You can retweet that. We still have a few minutes left for the red carpet show. Yeah, it's a solemn here. We're all set to go talk sports. And then you learn Walter Gretzky. I only got the news this morning. I guess I unplugged from my devices.
It was late last night.
Yeah, I saw it like 11 p.m. And I guess I unplugged prior to 11 p.m., as they say. And then got that Monica told me this morning. She was up first checking her phone. Sad because everybody loved Walter, right? Well, we'll talk about it on the show, but he was universally beloved.
He was everybody's hockey father, right?
Right.
If you want to start this, baby, let's go. Not that the red carpet isn't the greatest thing in the world, but let's get to the show.
All right. Let's do this thing.
Welcome to HEBSY on Sports, episode 222. Mark Shapiro alongside Toronto Mike on a very busy day in sports, kind of a sad day as well. Everybody's favorite hockey dad, Walter Gretzky, has died at the age of 82. He'd been battling Parkinson's disease, died at his home in Brantford, 42 Verardi Avenue. The house he had been in, Wayne was born in that house. That's the house with the backyard rink. Really sad. And like everyone else, I adored Wally because he was everybody's friend, but also, you'll find out later, a great storyteller. And he was my roommate and golf partner on a few occasions at, celebrity golf tournaments, stuff like that. And also, when I was working in Hamilton, Brantford's not far from Hamilton at all.
Right.
It's like 15, 20 minutes. And anytime Walter had something going with the Heart and Stroke Foundation, for example, he suffered a stroke in 1991, almost died, an aneurysm, actually. Anytime he had something going with the Heart and Stroke Foundation or whatever, the Walter Gretzky ball hockey tournament, which went on for years, I would go and help him out, support him. He always supported any cause I was involved in. Super guy. So we'll talk more about the late, great Walter Gretzky a bit later on.
Absolutely.
The Leafs lost 3-1 in Vancouver last night. No big deal, Mike. I think this might have been one of the few games that Leaf fans would go, it wasn't a must win. They can't win every game. They played the night before and won in Edmonton. They just killed the Oilers in 3 straight games, outscoring them 13-1. So you're going to have a letdown, especially if you have to travel from Edmonton to Vancouver and then be on the ice the next day. So they lost 3-1. They were a bit flat. No big deal. Lots of games left, and they still have a good gap on top in the Gord Downey division. That's the Northern division, the Gord Downey division. That's a J. Is that a J in? Let me think. Jay
Onrait?
Onrait thing. I was going to say Jay and Dan.
Does he have a co-host there yet, or is it just him solo?
No, It's going to be him. He's basically anchoring his own version of Sports Center with his own twist on it.
Okay,
single anchor, which is hard to do. You're doing a show all by yourself. You can't go, Dan, what do you think? Oh, geez, Dan's not here anymore. It's me. I got to handle it all. Anyway, we'll get to that as well. Where was I here? Oh, the Raptors. Yeah. 3 of their starters and their coach out COVID protocol. I think they had like 7 healthy players, and they gave the Boston Celtics a real run for their money last night. Eventually they lost, but boy, oh boy, this team does not give up. So we'll talk about the Raps and the Eastern Conference playoff race. The Blue Jays continue their spring training play, but how would you know? How would you know? No pictures, no video, no TV, no radio, not even a decent handheld camera highlight. How tough can it be to, sit behind home plate up high where that camera you're used to seeing is and follow, pitch here is there, hit, follow, there goes the ball to the outfield. How tough can it be? They can't even do that. And what kind of way is this to promote your team? Hey, George Springer, first game as a nobody there. Nobody. Crickets. Simeon Woods Richardson, Alec Manoah, a couple of future stars on the pitching staff. Nothing. Whoever was taking the video, it looked like raisins on a marshmallow as opposed to baseball players on a field.
Right.
So far away. Today's day and age, technology, you're telling me you can't get a decent lens on an iPhone or something that can give you a closer picture? I could do it.
Right.
What the heck? Hire some 15-year-old YouTuber and say, look, do me a favor, get some angles,
right.
Shoot it. I mean, they own the broadcast rights. They're not broadcasting the game, right? Wouldn't you think that they could get somebody for nothing to do it? Hey, we'll let you into the ballpark, shoot some video, and then tweet it out after every half inning. We want to see it. Perhaps you'd like to sign a petition to get Blue Jay games back on the radio without a simulcast. I did, and I feel great about it. I even donated $20 to the cause.
Wow.
Because I think this is very important.
But where does that go?
Can't let Rogers get away with this.
Who gets
We're going to talk about all this and more coming up.
Okay.
But first, Mike, your thoughts on hearing that Walter Gretzky, the most famous sports parent in the world, I guess, of a famous athlete, ever to pass, has passed away.
Well, obviously, I was incredibly saddened by this news. My wife woke up first, and she was on her phone, and she got the news, and she delivered it to me in just immediate sadness. I can't wait to hear your recollections because you knew the man, you met the man, and we have a clip we're going to play soon. But I want to just say that I once heard Walter on the Fan 590 telling the story of the night Wayne Gretzky scored his 50th goal in his 39th game. He had 5 that game, as you recall. And
right.
The game wasn't, I guess in Brantford, there was no way at that time to actually see this game or hear this game. Pre-internet and all that jazz. Anyway, so
there actually was. Mark.
Well, he didn't though.
Yeah, he didn't though because he didn't have a satellite dish at the house.
Okay, he needed a satellite dish, right? So Wayne, after the game, before the press conference, 50 goals in 39 games. Like, think about that. He calls his dad Walter, and Walter, I heard Walter telling this story, and I don't even want to do the impression, except it was the most beautiful story hearing him do his Wayne impression of calling his dad about his 50th goal in the 39th game and the excitement. And I just think everybody loves Walter, and he'll be missed. This is a very sad day.
Yeah, it is. I got to know Wally really well. We were roommates a couple times at Fergie Jenkins's charity golf tournament. I think it was 3 out of 4 years. And what happened was you would go in the night before, there'd be a big cocktail party down in St. Catharines. And, everybody would be there. You'd be signing autographs and stuff. And of course, Wally would never, ever leave anyone with an autograph unsigned. He would sign everybody. You could have to wait hours for him.
Right.
He would not say no. That's the kind of a guy he was. And I'll bet you amongst all the listeners today, everyone has a Wally Gretzky story. They'd either met him, they had a picture taken with him, they got an autograph with him, or they know someone that did. It's like 1 degree of separation for Walter Gretzky in this country.
You're right. And coincidentally, just this week, they took down Wayne Gretzky's at 99 Blue Jays Way. Like that's happening this week. So
wow,
some synergies there.
Yeah. That's wild. But anyway, Walter had been a widower since 2005 when his wife Phyllis passed away. Prior to that, though, and I had alluded to it, in 1991 he suffered a brain aneurysm and was, I don't want to say given up for dead, but it did not look good for quite a while. He was in critical condition, and nearly died. And in fact, his daughter, Kim, eventually married Walter's therapist, Ian.
Wow.
They got to know each other very well as Ian was looking after Walter and helping him with his physical therapy. And it was a nice story after that. These are stories that you didn't hear much about because normally when you heard about the Gretzky family, you heard about Wayne, of course,
right,
and about Walter, who loved being, the famous father of a famous guy. Phyllis didn't like it as much. She didn't like the fact that Walter, hey, I'm Walter Gretzky, I'm Wayne's father. She kind of was a lot more low key, and she'd like slap him sometime or hit him on the knee and say, Walter, stop that. You're embarrassing me. And he's like, come on, it's our son. He's famous. and Walter ended up being famous on his own, just by being himself. He didn't put on any airs. He said what was on his mind. He was a real guy. And condolences to the family. I know the family. Wayne, Kim, Keith, Glenn, Brent, all the extended family. Yeah, Brent and I hung out a lot, actually. Brent had some really good stories to tell about Wally. Wayne, too, of course. But when I was rooming with Wally one of those years at the Fergie Jenkins tournament, we had a big suite. I said, Wally, I'll take the couch. No, I'll take the couch. I said, no, you take the bedroom. I'll take the pull-out couch. No. He says, Mark, let me tell you, I'm used to falling asleep on chairs, couches, wherever. I can sleep anywhere. You take the bedroom. And so grudgingly, I took the bedroom in the suite. And I realized that because I did, for one reason, is he didn't want to tell me that he was prone to insomnia and occasional sleepwalking. Now, I don't know if this ever came up, but he said to me, Mark, I think I might sleepwalk. And so what happened was he wanted the suite because he didn't want to be in a bedroom and have to come out and whatever. He figures if he's in the suite, if he gets up in the middle of the night, he's not going to wake me up. Well, in the middle of the night, I hear clattering of plates because we had a little kitchen in this kitchen, clattering of plates. I come out and he's hi. He's making a sandwich. It's like 3:00 in the morning. Sorry, didn't I wake you up? And we told a bunch of stories. Anyway, I think that was the next day we were out there. I said, Wally, let's talk. Everyone's asking you about Wayne. It's all about Wayne. Let's have a little conversation. You're nice and relaxed. And so, Mike, you've got the tape. Roll this tape of an interview. Probably, I'm going to say this is around 2001, Fergie Jenkins golf tournament. Wally Gretzky.
Totally definition.
Okay, here we are with Walter Gretzky on a beautiful day, raising money for a Red Cross and Fergie Jenkins tournament. Wally, I assume a lot of the questions that you get have to do with Wayne, and very few about you. So what was your career in sports like when you were a young man?
Well, I played junior B hockey. I played minor hockey in Paris, Ontario. Then I played junior B hockey in Woodstock. I went there the year after Bobby Hull left. They won it that year. Bobby Hull's team won it that year. We didn't, needless to say. And then I played intermediate hockey. And then I got involved in minor hockey. And here I am today, retired.
And what about Phyllis, your wife? Was she athletically inclined also?
Yeah, she used to play baseball in Paris, but she was athletically inclined, yes.
At what point during Wayne's career did you say, you know what, this kid's he's better than the other kids out there?
Well, even when he was 6 and 7 years old, you could tell he would be special. But to ever say he would play pro hockey, as you know, you could never say that. It wasn't until he was about 17 or 18 that actually 17, I figured he had a chance because he always was small and very light. But he never got hurt too many times. And it wasn't really until then because, as you know yourself, everyone said he's just too small. There's just no way.
But isn't it true that people of diminutive size make up for it with other things, good instincts, smart play?
Absolutely. The one thing I tried to teach Wayne, I said, you might be smaller than everybody else, lighter, and not as strong as everyone else, but you can always be smarter than everybody else. And of course, that was part of Wayne's big game was his anticipation and his smarts. So he took that advice, I guess.
Did you teach him that, or was that something he picked up on his own?
Well, he picked up, as you know, Wayne's a fast learner, and tried to teach him that, and he just picked it up.
The other kids, especially the ones younger than Wayne, must have had some problems going through school, minor sports, because instead of being known as Keith Gretzky or Glenn Gretzky or Brent Gretzky, they were known as Wayne's younger brothers. How did the kids handle it? How did you and Phyllis handle it?
Absolutely. That's that's what happened. But what we tried to do was I tried to teach each one of them, as long as you know you've done the very, very best you could possibly do, it doesn't matter what anybody else says or thinks. As long as you know you've done the best, then that's good enough. And you should be happy with that. Were
the kids proud to be the younger siblings of Wayne?
Very much so, because Wayne never, ever forgot any of them. He included them, which he does even today in anything that he does. And that made it a lot easier for the family, too.
Okay. Walter Gretzky has a great story to tell, but him and his eldest son at a hockey tournament. Wally, what happened when Wayne had 2 tournaments in one day?
Well, one time you could, if you were played for a major team, you could play for a minor team if you were the age. Like, in other words, if you were a 9-year-old, you could play 10-year-old and 9-year-olds. So there were 2 tournaments this one particular weekend. My brother-in-law was the coach of the other team, the 9-year-olds, and Wayne was a 9-year-old playing with 10-year-olds. And he wanted him to come to his tournament. I think it was in Niagara Falls or St. Catharines. However, I said, no, he can't go because he's got a commitment to his own team. Anyways, got up in the morning. Phyllis woke me up. She says, Walter, you better take him to Niagara Falls because he won't be any good to you anyways, because he wants to go that bad. So I said, okay. Phone ahead, tell him we're coming. They had no idea at that point. So anyways, called ahead to Niagara Falls, and I drove down there, and I had someone else with me, and the 3 of us went. My friend went with us, and I dressed him in the car so that, because we were late, we got him in there for the middle of the second period, and they were losing at the time, I think 5-1. They ended up winning 6-5. Wayne got 5 goals. But anyways, there was a man standing at the door of the rink as I carried him in with his skates on, all his equipment on. And then we had to rush right out of that rink because he had his own team to play for in Hesper about an hour and a half, hour and 3/4 later. So I just picked him up and carried him out with his equipment on. The same man is standing at that door. He says, my God, I don't believe this. They carry the kid in and they carry him out. It's a true story. Never forget it.
How about that? Hey, Mike?
That was great. Here, let me.
That was me.
That's you. Okay. That was fantastic.
So now, I mean, that's just a slice of the conversations we used to have. You're having a conversation with someone. It's not all, I'm asking him questions as he's answering. We're having a car. He's asking me stuff about me. But a few things that didn't come out there that I remember him saying. And remember, we would go golfing, and this course that we played, I think it's called Rockaway in St. Catharines, right? And next to it are these orchards, apple orchards and pear. Do you call it an orchard if it's pears? Would it still be called an orchard?
Great question. I have no clue.
Anyway, so we're next to these orchards, and so we're in the golf cart, and Wally goes, "Stop here. I want to get some pears." Right.
Right.
And he just walks into the field there. I don't even think there was a fence there guarding it. If there was, it wasn't a big deal.
Right.
And he comes back with, I'm telling you, like a dozen beautiful pears, and he stuffs them in his golf bag. And away we go. And you want a pear? Sure. So we're eating pears, whatever. A couple of holes later, we go past the apple orchard. And he says, "You want an apple?" And he grabs some apples. I'm thinking, this is too funny. Anyway, he's got a bunch of golf balls in there as well. Apparently, I didn't realize he was a pack rat. He just collected stuff.
Right.
And he says, "Do you need some golf balls?" Sure. So he takes, I don't know, a dozen golf balls out. So he's got room to put a dozen apples in the bag. The bag is bursting. It's bursting at the seams, literally, with pears and apples. And he's proud as hell of himself. Found 12 pears, 12 apples, 5 golf balls. He loved it.
Yep.
And he just loved the attention too. He couldn't get enough of talking about Wayne and the rest of the family. And he had good comedic timing. The type of, he would say, stuff like, how can I fly like an eagle when I'm grounded by turkeys here? Stuff like that. Just a terrific guy. And here's what Wayne said last night on Twitter when he confirmed the news. Quote, "It's with deep sadness that Janet and I share the news of the passing of my dad. He bravely battled Parkinson's and other health issues for the last few years, but it never let it get him down. For me, he was the reason I fell in love with the game of hockey. He inspired me to be the best I could be, not just in the game of hockey, but in life." So rest in peace, Walter Gretzky. And heck of a guy.
And my understanding is a very humble guy who didn't, because his son could have bought him a huge mansion and security and all this, but he seemed to be so content with who he was and where he was.
he accepted, I think, an addition onto the house
Okay.
in Verardi rather than, go and live in California or I don't know what he was offered.
Sure.
All I know is this, is that all of Wayne's siblings, like Wally said, they all appreciate him, and he never took it for granted. He went the other way, in fact. He bent over backwards to ensure that he wasn't the focus of attention in the family. Right? And Walter the same way. Although you would think, only seeing Walter, say, oh, Walter must have just been, he was Wayne's biggest fan. Sure, but he was also the biggest fan of his other kids too.
Beautiful.
And he told me that the best athlete and this was unsolicited. I didn't say, so was Wayne the best athlete? He said, the best athlete in the family. This is one I don't know. It's like, hey, out of the blue, do you know who the best athlete in our family was? I'm like, it wasn't Wayne? He goes, it was Kim.
Wow.
His daughter Kim apparently was a tremendous track and field star. And for whatever reason, she either didn't want to pursue or couldn't pursue her athletic career the same way the boys could. There weren't as many opportunities for her. And so she didn't pursue it to the same degree because the opportunities weren't there like it was for the boys, I guess, in boys sports, especially in a small town like Brantford.
Now, Jared is watching live on our on your Facebook stream here, and he says he would see Walter at Northridge Golf Course all the time. This is in Brantford. Yep. He'd be there at dusk looking for golf balls.
and pears and apples.
Yeah. And
he was something.
Yeah, go ahead.
He was just a down-to-earth guy who happened to, be the father of like the world's greatest hockey player, famous hockey player. And I think one of the reasons why people loved Wayne Gretzky as much as they did was because they knew about his family too. You didn't know anything about Mario Lemieux's father or Bobby Orr's father or Gordie Howe's father or really anybody. And even if you go to other sports,
well, only when they're controlling, like Tiger Woods' dad, we knew because he was so militant.
But he was different than Walt. He wasn't beloved.
Right. No.
Walter Gretzky was beloved. Well, right. I remember Wayne Gretzky, I think there was a Wayne Gretzky wine or something like that, or a booze. And Walter was at the LCBO, standing there as you walked in, ready to sign autographs.
Amazing.
Right? For Gretzky's wine.
Wow.
That's great.
Now, Hebsy, just before we get to the Leafs news, since we're coming off some sad news in the loss of Walter Gretzky, just if we could acknowledge that Chris Schultz passed away. He had a heart attack yesterday. Rod Smith reports that at the age of 61, Chris Schultz died yesterday. So wanted to...
Schultz was a great guy. Schultz, I want to tell you something. 61, died of a heart attack. Way too young. Yeah. He was great on the panel on TSN for years. He talked, but anytime they did NFL and Super Bowl, he was down there. He went to all those Super Bowl. He played for the Dallas Cowboys too for a while.
Yes, for a couple of years.
I'll tell you what. I remember the Argos lost a playoff game, and I went to interview him. And man, Schultz, he was a big guy, and he was angry. He had just thrown his helmet down. He was so upset at the loss, and I had to interview him. And I'm kind of, Schultz, can I, whatever? And he was just like, just give me a second, right? 5 seconds or so. Composed himself, and just gave me a great interview. Wow. And he didn't have to. He could have said, "Look, I'm not in the mood," or whatever. And he just, great interview. I always admired him for that. Class guy, and
a
great sense of humor.
Right.
Could laugh at himself. Gentle giant.
And a pretty good broadcaster, because a lot of people know from his TSN career covering football.
He had a pretty extensive broadcasting career. He was good. In fact, he was good from the very beginning. I remember when I first saw him, because I had done interviews with him, so I knew that he was media savvy. He could string some words together. He was articulate. University of Arizona. Anyway,
so
sad.
Let's
get to some other news. In hockey, the Leafs lost 3-1 to Vancouver last night. One of those games that was not a must-win. It wasn't, we've got to beat Vancouver tonight. I know it sounds weird, but you can't expect them to win every game. I know that sounds even stranger. You can't expect the Leafs to win every game. Hebsy, are you nuts?
Well, maybe if we played
Matthews
Edmonton
and Marner
every game.
had off. Oh, sorry?
I said maybe if we played the Oilers every game, we could. I feel like that's...
Well, we swept Vancouver last weekend, didn't we?
Right. Yeah, no, it's been quite the run. This team's been fun to watch anyway.
It's good. Matthews and Marner had off nights, both with a -2. Leafs had a lot of chances to get more than one past Thatcher Demko in the first period. They can only score once via Pierre Engvall. He got the only Leafs goal. Now, if I would have said to you, Leafs are going to score one goal against Vancouver, would you have had Pierre Engvall in your pool?
Not unless you gave me some pretty sweet odds on that one.
Anyway, Leafs outshot the Canucks 15-7 in the first, only had the one goal. They were tied 1-1 after one. And then Vancouver got a power play in the second by Jake Virtanen, his second of the game. And then in the third, they got the insurance goal thanks to Bo Horvat. And in fact, Virtanen's goal should have been an own goal off of Justin Hall. But they don't do that in hockey.
No.
In soccer, they do.
Yes.
If the ball wasn't going to be going in and it goes in off of a defender, it's considered an own goal.
Right.
Had the ball been going in anyway and hit a defender, it's not an own goal. Sort of a judgment thing but in hockey, you could be the last guy to touch it, flip it in, be on the bench. It could go off two skates and a head and in the net, and you get credit for the goal.
Right.
Anyway, in the third period, young Bo Horvat scored the insurance goal, and the final was 3-1. So, after winning 3 straight in Edmonton, after outscoring them by an aggregate of 13-1, and then taking a flight after the game to Vancouver, it's only one time zone difference, and it's not that long a flight, but still, you just played the night before.
Right.
And so they were a little lethargic, let's say. And you could tell in the third period they were tired. They didn't have their legs.
And like you said, you can't win them all.
No. The struggling Montreal Canadiens. Boy, what a move that coaching change was. Sure turned that team around, huh? They lost 4-3 in overtime, but they didn't lose because they got the loser point. So they got a tie in Winnipeg. Winnipeg got the extra point there. 4-3 winners on a goal by Pierre-Luc Dubois. Welcome to Winnipeg, buddy. Patrick Laine, never heard of you. Mm-hmm. The surging Jets now just 7 points back of Toronto with 2 games in hand. But wait, it gets better, Mike. Guess who's in town for 3 games next week?
The Jets.
Yes. Now those games will mean something.
Right.
Imagine if we sweep the Jets. If they're within 7 or even 5 points of us, let's say, we sweep them.
Such a strange season, eh? Like I'm kind of glad it's a one-off, but it's so bizarre that you have, only so many teams and all these it's like baseball almost. You got series. So. Now,
Kara Wagland of TSN tweeted the other day that she's getting tired. She didn't think she would at the beginning of the year, but now she's getting tired of the Gord Downey division, the Northern Division, everybody playing everybody else.
Aren't
she's
you
getting tired?
How do you feel, Hebsy? Because I totally
feel
get
as a
that.
Leaf fan, I never get tired of the Leafs winning. I don't care who they play. And you have to understand, they played each team 14 times back in the 6-team NHL. 14 times. Right. Nobody said, I'm getting tired of this 6-team NHL. We keep seeing the Rangers
but that's
and the
all
Bruins
there was.
and the Canadians and the Blackhawks.
That's all there was. So
and the Wings.
I guess I'm curious. I don't know how good this team is. I feel like do you have a sense of how good the Leafs are, like in terms of cup contention? If we just keep playing these same group of teams over and over again,
sure am. Confidence is everything.
Wow.
If you can,
we got to get you on the ice.
If those are the only games scheduled, and you're beating everybody,
right?
What makes you think you can't beat other teams?
It's like in college football when you're undefeated, but you're not ranked number 1. It's like, what more were you supposed to do? Like you just won the games.
Well, because there's lots of teams in college football. You could be one of 10 undefeated teams. The fact that you're not ranked.
I know.
But it's the same for all the other teams. And let me tell you, after 56 games, I want to see how Washington or Philly or Pittsburgh comes out of that tough division to play what I hope is a fairly fresh Maple Leaf team that just finished off Ottawa and Vancouver and Calgary and these other bad teams.
Shout out to Murray, who's loving the show. He's watching on Facebook, and he says, Happy Friday. Great show, guys.
Thank you, Murray. So Winnipeg coming in next week. The Leafs' next game is in Vancouver tomorrow night, so they get a day off in Vancouver, get their sea legs, go to Joe Fort's for some seafood on Burrard. Nice place.
Nice.
And then I'm thinking Freddie Anderson between the pipes tomorrow night and a W for the Leafs. They'll bounce back.
Awesome.
The NBA All-Star break is upon us. Did you know there's an NBA All-Star game this year?
I heard, and surprising.
No fans, of course. To which, I mean, if ever you were going to have a sporting event that had to have fans, it's got to be the All-Star game. A regular season game, okay.
Right.
But the All-Star game, the dunk contest, all that stuff, the skills, no fans? None? I mean, if you had it in Texas, you could probably put 10,000 fans in the arena.
Or Florida.
Or they have a team in Mississippi? No, because Mississippi now, no mask, right? Like business as usual in Texas and Mississippi.
Yeah, and I think Florida's letting. We saw the Super Bowl had a bunch of people there.
They had a bunch, yeah. 10% or 25% capacity.
Right.
50%, whatever it was.
Right.
Anyway, so the All-Star break's upon us. The All-Star game this year is in Indianapolis. I'm going to say. I think so. Was it Milwaukee last year? I can't remember. It doesn't really matter.
No.
It doesn't matter where it is because no fans are going there to see the game. And it couldn't come at a better time. It couldn't come at a worse time.
Gord Downey division.
The Raptors, luckily, will get a few days off during the All-Star break to rest their wounds, and hopefully the COVID protocols that have been in place will result in the release of Coach Nick Nurse, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, and a couple of others, I think.
Wow.
They're just decimated, not by the disease, the virus, but just by the fact that because someone came in contact with someone else, these people might have been, super spreaders. They've got to be contained, quarantined. So without those guys,
but Hebsy, earlier this season, you were advocating for the Raps to take a loss if they couldn't put a team on the court. You take the L.
Right.
Do you still feel that?
But they could put a team on the court.
But they've had a couple of games canceled because they couldn't. Like, do you still feel that way?
I think if you can field a team, you can field a team. I mean, I would like to think that every team during the course of the year likely has some situations where guys can't play, that it would even out amongst all. The thing that's worse for the Raptors is they don't have a home. You can't go crawl into your bed at home. They're the only team in the NBA that doesn't have a home,
right?
And that's got to affect them. This is 2 years in a row. No home, no fans there. I mean, the people that show up to the games in Tampa aren't Raptor fans. They're just basketball fans who happen to be down in Florida. So I feel bad for them. That's really shorthanded. That's like playing the game with one hand tied behind your back.
Right.
And meanwhile, still, they're in 8th place in the East, in the incredibly tight East. There's just a 2-game difference between the 4th place Celtics and the 9th place Chicago Bulls.
Wow.
So you really got 11 or 12 teams that have a legit shot of making the playoffs. Raptors back in action next Thursday. Nobody at the All-Star game this year? No Raptor? I don't even know.
I honestly have been blocking out all the All-Star
VanVleet, I know,
games.
got, what's the word they use? Snubbed?
Snubbed, yes. He was snubbed.
That's a word you only hear around the Academy Awards time and when there's All-Star selections.
That's right.
Or Hall of Fame selections.
That's
Snubbed.
right.
You never hear it. What happened to your date last night? Oh, I got snubbed. No. Especially during the pandemic.
Right.
Not a lot of dating and snubbing going on, I guess. So the Raps back in action next Thursday when they host the Hawks in Tampa. And again, I just can't believe how well they're playing. I mean, I would have thought that they would just fallen right down the tubes without a home, missing a lot of key players. It's got to be awfully difficult. So really, the Raptors are gypsies. It's the Toronto Gypsies. We have no home. Toronto Blue Jays, gypsies, no home. Maple Leafs, we got a home. But what happens when we have to go to the States? How's that going to work?
I'd love to know.
Because you can't come back into Canada unless you're quarantined, unless someone says, oh, it's okay, you guys are exempt because you're the Leafs.
Well, maybe they're hoping by then there's some rapid test and they can make some exception. Maybe they're hoping things will change by then.
Listen, my parents are almost 89. They haven't even gotten a call. They're dying to find out, where can we go?
Right.
I've seen these pictures of people, seniors lined up in the freezing cold.
Right.
You couldn't open up the dome and put 30,000 people in there? Easy as pie. Field level. No steps to go up. No waiting in the cold. What the hell's going on? They're 88 years old. They're watching 65-year-olds and 70-year-olds get vaccinated. Younger people getting vaccinated.
Oh, I'm hoping your parents get this. Got to happen in March. Like, we need to get those shots in your parents' arms. Enough is enough.
And you're waiting for a phone call, or you're trying to go on a website, and then you find out that this place has got shots. You show up there and you see lined up around the block.
It's terrible. We got to get this sorted out.
Let's go to baseball now. Speaking of the Gypsies, the Blue Jays, the Dunedin Blue Jays, the Buffalo Blue Jays, the United States Blue Jays. One team, one nation. What, are you kidding me? I don't even know if these guys will ever get back to Canada ever. Say, what was it like playing 7 years with the Blue Jays? Oh, I don't know. I never went to Canada. What are those fans like? Don't know. If we could actually see or hear a Blue Jay game, something tangible, touch, feel, taste, smell, see. But no. We might be more excited about the team, but frankly, the Blue Jays are a mystery, wrapped in an enigma. George Springer, his debut as a Blue Jay was covered not. Had it been a normal year, how many cameras would have been down? How many recording devices? How many writers, fans, autographs for this guy signed? The George Springer, the great George Springer, here he is, ladies and gentlemen. It's our debut.
You'd be down there.
Absolutely. And don't forget, Sportsnet, if this was the Maple Leafs, they would be right down there. They would have features on every guy, his hometown, everything about him. But not the Jays, because the Jays and Sportsnet are two completely different entities. The Sportsnet can't tell the Jays what to do. The Jays can't say to Sportsnet, like, we know we're from the same ownership, but it would be nice to have some promotion. It would be nice to have, cameras down here, microphones down here, recording our spring training with the great George Springer that nobody knows except via Zoom. Ridiculous.
But Ben Wagner and Buck Martinez are there.
They are.
So
look, Ben Wagner, I've seen some shots, and I'm sure Ben, from first finding out, was it last week, Mike? Last Friday afternoon?
Right.
Or last Friday morning, he found out that he was not going to be the play-by-play radio guy, that there wasn't going to be one. Yeah. And since then, it's been, all right, Ben, long as you're down there, you're going to be reporting for Sportsnet. So he's on with Jamie Campbell or on the Sports Central, doing hits there. But also he's down there with his phone, and occasionally, not always, he's taking some video. But it's almost like he's from across the street. Like, is he not allowed in the stands to a reasonable position where there's a camera? Does he not have they didn't give him a little tripod and maybe a camera with a better lens?
Yeah, like
so he can actually
Rebel,
shoot video?
Get a Canon Digital Rebel, expense it to Rogers, and get us some good footage.
But instead, it says like, oh, here's George Springer's first at bat. And it's like if you were sitting on the roof as far away as you could so that you could get the entire field in play. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you're zooming in sort of on the pitcher's mound and the hitter, that 60 feet area there, and then you can pull back and follow the flight of the ball. No, this shot is the widest possible shot. And then you see a guy swinging. You don't know who it is.
Right.
And then you don't see the ball. And the camera isn't moving to go to where the fielder is, whoever that fielder is, to catch it. Mm-hmm. It's just a static shot. And underneath it's Ben Wagner saying, here's George Springer's first hit of the spring. Where? Come on. You own the rights. Give the guy a Canon camera that's got a decent little lens. Mm-hmm. Let him learn. I mean, how tough can it be to shoot video of baseball? He's seen enough games. Right. And let him call the play-by-play in real time. Let him hold the camera and go, here's the pitch, strike three called. Great fastball by Simeon Woods Richardson. And with the camera, he's following Richardson, or he's following the hitter back to the dugout. And then post it. Post it every 10 minutes after every half inning on Twitter. You'll get thousands and thousands of views from people that are dying to see the Blue Jays up close. What does he look like up there?
Do you think
even
there's
radio yesterday? You had to listen to the Tigers radio broadcast to know what was going, because there was no Blue Jays TV, which means there was no Blue Jay radio.
Right. Can I ask you? Do you think that there's an MLB stipulation that they can't do it half-assed like that? Like it's go big or go home? Like it somehow tarnishes, you know what I'm saying? Like somehow, like if they do it half-assed, like some guy on his iPhone, whatever, that somehow somehow dilutes the quality of the enterprise and therefore is like not up to standard, or like there's a minimal standard.
But no, I just explained to you that Ben Wagner put in a shot, a wide shot of the field, and explained that this was George Springer's first hit. You couldn't even see it. So if he can shoot that, and it's okay with Major League Baseball,
yeah, that's okay.
Why can't he be closer, or why can't he get a lens that will get him closer, lock it off on a tripod that costs nothing?
Okay, then let me ask another question.
I mean, expensive. Here's what's going to happen.
Go ahead.
You're going to hear it from me first. This is what's happened. Rogers did this on purpose. They said, no radio, no dedicated radio. Got Dan Shulman all upset. What kind of game am I going to do? Am I going to do a radio game on TV, a TV game on radio? How do I do this? All this stress. And this is their plan. Mm-hmm. They wanted to save a couple $100,000 in spring training. They wanted a couple of months to sort of get the lay of the land. What's going to happen with this team? Are we ever going to come back to Toronto? If we're going to Buffalo, how's that going to work? Because we've got to do more renovations to Salem Field to make it, like a full-time home for them, as opposed to a temporary home last year. And so what if we do this? What if we say we're not doing radio broadcasts? if we get a big pushback from the fans, and there's a petition out, change.org, right, where you can, complain and sign your name to the petition that you want Blue Jays dedicated radio broadcast back. And if Rogers sees that there's this big groundswell of dissent, then they can say, we made a mistake. And by opening day, they've got their radio. It may not be on a radio station. Maybe it's going to be on a Blue Jays audio platform, but at least you can get audio coverage, dedicated coverage. Maybe it's going to be a little cheaper. Maybe it's just Ben Wagner. But what they do is they save themselves a couple of $100,000, maybe more, I don't know. And it gives them time to prepare for the regular season and how maybe they can't do it out of Dunedin, but they'll do it starting in Buffalo. But I can tell you this right now. And I don't know if it's going to be from the groundswell of rejected fans and the anger that might subside. Oh, we're not that angry with Rogers anymore. But right this week, to not be able to see or hear anything about your favorite team, to not know anything about Simeon Woods Richardson or Alec Manoah, have to find out via Twitter by independent broadcasters and writers like Keegan Matheson, who's down there, who's shooting video.
Right.
Which, again, I don't know. Is he allowed to do that?
Well, he works for MLB.
He's on their own rights.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they want something coming back to their fans to prove that they're down there?
Hebsy,
Anyway.
man, I don't know. Like, if that's the game they're playing, I don't think their fans want to play games like this. Like, I don't
think the fans are knowing that they're playing it. Like I said,
yeah.
Rogers can come up just before opening day and say, look, we've listened to the fans. We've changed our minds. We've heard you. We're not nasty, terrible people. We want you to have radio coverage. Here's our suggestion.
I
will be some, and the other one is I got to believe that Dan Shulman is just pissed. Like, he's a tremendous broadcaster.
Yes.
He's a great radio broadcaster if it's a radio game. Mm-hmm. He's a great television broadcaster if it's a TV game. But you can't ask him to be both because it's a different style. And he's the best example. Joe Bowen can do TV the same way he does radio, and no one's going to say anything. That's Joe's style. Rat-a-tat-a-tat. Right? Smith to Jones, Sundin, over to Tucker, or boom, 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 boom. That's not the way television does it as much, right? You don't have to, every guy that's got it in, a half second because it's such a fast game. But Joe didn't alter his play-by-play style that much for television.
Right.
Except when the, director is in his ear saying, all right, Joe, take a break. Graphic, Joe. And here's comparing stuff like that. But beyond that, it's the same. Baseball different. So if I'm Dan Shulman, I'm saying to Rogers, look, when I signed a contract with you guys, it was to be the TV play-by-play guy. As if I don't have enough problems going on here. I got my ESPN basketball. I'm stuck in Connecticut. When I'm finished with my basketball, I have to come to Canada, quarantine for 14 days before I can start broadcasting Blue Jays baseball out of a hermetically sealed studio with Buck Martinez. Right. And now you're telling me I got to do a hybrid broadcast? So if he has anything to say to Rogers, and if they voided his contract, because maybe his contract is to do television, baseball, and now they're saying to him, well, he's got to do a hybrid. Or they're saying to him, don't worry about it. Screw the radio listeners. You just do your TV game. To which he goes, but wait a second. Anyone listening to me on radio is thinking I'm doing a crummy job. He's exposed here, and it's unfair to Dan and to Buck, for that matter. So my suggestion is have him do a radio broadcast. Say to Dan, you're on radio. Don't worry about TV.
Right.
Cut back on the graphics. Cut back on the TV stuff that you think your announcers would defer to. They'd look at the monitor and go, oh, there's a look at so-and-so, there's a look at so-and-so. And consider the fact that Dan is enough of a pro that if you say to him, do it like a radio game, he's not going to start looking at the monitor and thinking it's a TV game. You can weave just as many stories into a radio broadcast as a TV broadcast. You can just put less graphics in, and your director can be hip to the fact that your announcers are doing a radio-style game.
Hebsy, man, I hate to be a contrarian here, but...
No, you don't.
I am of the belief that the radio broadcast is not nearly as popular as you think it is. And I think a lot of this has to do, is a generational thing. Baseball itself has a problem with young people, actually. Like, they have a huge issue with people under the age of 40 falling in love with the game. But that's baseball. But baseball on the radio, if you notice, most of the outrage are 40 plus. It's really
I don't know. How can you tell?
it's anecdotal evidence, of course. I haven't done
it.
it.
If you go on,
but,
for example, the Toronto
oh, you cut out for a moment there. You there?
Blue Jays group on Facebook, which I'm on, Blue Jays.
Yeah.
And you see the numbers of people, young and old, because they're Blue Jay fans. This isn't for older Blue Jay fans only.
Right.
This is for all Blue Jay fans. And you look at the demographics, they're just as upset because you know what? They've been in the car before, traveling to the cottage or whatever, and wanted to pick up the Jays game. They've been outdoors in the summertime, wanting to listen to the Jays game, or at least get the audio from the Jays game. So even if you were listening to Dan and Buck on your device that was showing the game, you're listening to their broadcast, but you're not listening to a radio broadcast of it. You're listening to their description of it for the TV audience.
So, Hebsy, what I think is going to happen here, this is so just on the heels of your prediction there, I think there's no chance they do a radio broadcast for television. I think it'll be a hybrid because I really think all the money is being made on the television side, and I believe Rogers knows that the actual revenue and listenership on the radio is pretty darn minimal. It's a small thing. And I will also add this. The people who are listening to baseball on the radio are fanatics and they'll listen to anything. So they're not going to abandon it just because it's Dan Shulman's television call. Like you're now talking about the diehards, just like spring training. I believe that you...
Oh, wait a second. Wait.
Yeah?
Diehards, are you...
Like yourself.
Would Maple Leaf fans be the same? Like you're a fan?
There's two types of fans, right? No, there's two types of fans. There's definitely two types.
No, the two types of fans are this. There's the diehards, which watch every game.
Right.
And then there's the casual fan that might watch a game on a Saturday if they're there, but they'll watch the playoffs.
Yes, exactly.
So how many millions of diehard fans do you think the Blue Jays have?
Less than one.
Oh, come on. You got to be kidding me.
Well, how many watch every game, care about watching?
You're going to go by the television ratings as to how many diehard Blue Jay fans there are?
That actually need to want to watch every game and actually would be upset that there's not a Toronto broadcast of the spring training games. I think you're looking at a small percentage, I think.
But the thing is, not having the spring training games, we're used to that. We're doing 10 or 7. We get that.
Sure.
But the fact that all the coverage, all of it, has been abandoned at a time where Blue Jay fans more than ever need it. Spring is here. We can't see the ball players in Toronto. We won't be able to get to see them. Give us something. Imagine if it was the Leafs. Same thing. They're in Florida. You can't see them. They can't play in Toronto. Give me something from training camp. Anything from training camp. Give me nuggets. Feed me.
Rogers has you diehards, and I'm borderline diehard. I can float in and out, but I was a diehard. I'm less of a diehard now, but they've got diehards by the gonads, okay? Because the diehards aren't going anywhere. They're just not going anywhere because they're diehards.
But you want more than diehards. You want to introduce a generation of baseball fans to Vladdy Guerrero Jr. and Lourdes Gurriel and Bo Bichette, and I don't have to tell you.
Sure, but that's the regular season and playoff television coverage that's going to do that. And I believe that's the mindset at Rogers anyways. Their regular season and playoff coverage of television is going to do what you're describing there. Because, it could be a great fun year.
The only way to get them to change their mind is outrage from the fans or sponsors. They go, there's money to be made. Maybe we're not so fast to invest in the radio version of it simply because you guys don't seem that interested in it. I think they can still, they got to make money off their radio. I think they have 20 affiliates. Although last summer we're up in Peterborough trying to find the Jays game on a Saturday afternoon on the Peterborough station, and they're airing something else. And then I notice that they only run certain games. Remember that? We only have a limited schedule of Jays games. Well, if you're running a limited schedule and you're not running them Saturday afternoons, when the hell are you running them?
Right.
I get it if you're not running midweek games because you've got a disc jockey on from 7 to midnight.
Right.
But what the hell are you running at 1:30 on a Saturday afternoon on the Peterborough station that I can't listen to the Jays?
But last point on this, Hebsy, because I love what you're saying. Because I'm sad too that the radio broadcast is going to be a simulcast of television. It feels like the end of an era. But the diehard now has a smartphone in their pocket where they press a button and they've got the Rogers Sportsnet telecast with Buck and Dan. They have it there, so they can listen to it.
I've got it.
Yeah, so the whole idea of the old-fashioned tuning in the local AM station that's got the game, that harkens back to an era that I look back with great fondness, but I think that era is done.
So even if 50% of your audience likes to listen on the radio, are you just going to piss on
There's
them.
no, but the number maybe 5%.
You have no idea what the numbers are.
But it's no way it's 50.
No, but you have no idea, right?
No, I have no
You
idea.
have no idea how many people listen to, and I don't know, 15 minutes of a Blue Jay game
I have
on
no.
radio
I don't have a
or half an
clue.
hour.
My feeling
then-
is it's
then
a lot
do me a
lower
favor.
than 50. Yeah.
Do me a favor. Don't talk about it anymore.
Okay.
I
It's not
get it that
50 though.
radio's dying. I think we all get that radio's dying, but I don't think you can, look at it and say with certainty that anyone new that's being introduced to baseball of a certain vintage is not going to listen to a radio only broadcast of the game.
Okay, then last thing here.
You don't know how influenced they
no.
are by their parents or grandparents. Dad, you got the game on? Yeah.
Okay, you have.
How did I learn about stuff? I learned from my dad,
Right.
right?
Right.
I want to listen to the game. This is what you do, son.
Right.
Cleveland station's here. The Detroit station's here. There were no Jays games in those days.
So
Here's how you do it.
So I have a 19-year-old. You have two boys in their 20s.
Yeah.
Would either tune in 590 to hear the Blue Jay game?
No, but they wouldn't listen to the Blue Jay game at all.
That's a bigger problem.
Well, it's not. They never. I mean, they like the Blue Jays, but they're not listeners or watchers of the games. They'll watch
Right.
YouTube highlights the next day.
Right.
And that's a whole other story.
It's all
It's a whole other
part of the same song, though.
That's what
Yeah.
every morning they get up and they watch the Jays highlights, Leafs highlights, Raptors highlights. They get it all within 5 minutes on YouTube. Done.
Correct.
And let's face it, Mike, last year at this time, there was also a pandemic going on. I didn't hear them crying poor or saying, because of health and safety reasons, we can't have a radio broadcast. So that's bullshit that COVID is any excuse at all.
I'm with you there. I think this is
Nonsense.
cost cutting, pure and simple.
And they're only doing 3 TV games the last couple of days of the season, which they're going to simulcast on radio. So none of their own production. I want to know more about Simeon Woods Richardson and Alec Manoah and George Springer. And I don't want to find out from a shot from 600 feet away that says there's a hit by so-and-so. Come on. It's ridiculous. Just a thought here, by the way. If we have Marcus Simeon and Simeon Woods Richardson, would we lead the league in Simeons? Like how many, somebody, hey, Simeon, and 2 guys turn around.
Oh, for sure. That's
It's not like Bill or Bob. These are the Bobs. These are the Simeons I know.
now spelled
These
differently,
are the
though.
Simeons I know.
There's a bit of a spelling difference.
Simeon Woods. Yeah, there is. Jays president Mark Shapiro was on the Bob McCown podcast the other day, and among other things, he said the Jays will be selling tickets in Buffalo, likely beginning in May, maybe June. And since there will be no large public gatherings in Toronto until July,
right?
Thanks to John Tory and others, one wonders if after the first couple weeks in Dunedin, the Jays will make Buffalo their permanent home for 2021. Looks that way. Shapiro was also asked by McCown about the lack of dedicated radio broadcast this year.
Mm-hmm.
And Shapiro reiterated that it's a Sportsnet decision and the Jays don't own Sportsnet. He did go on to say that Sportsnet is facing a tough business decision, and hopefully this simulcast will last only 1 year. So he already sort of has that, maybe it's not forever. He may know something.
Huh.
In fact, as president of the Jays, I think he does know something. And that's why I say that from a PR standpoint, you save yourself a couple $100,000. It's a PR disaster. And then you turn it around and go, we've listened to the fans. We're bringing back Ben Wagner.
Right.
We're going to have Blue Jays may not be as good as it was. We're going to do our best under the circumstances. Here you go, fans.
Like when
And
Bowen
you appease some of your fans.
right.
You look like real people instead of corporate hacks, cold-hearted people.
You might be onto something here.
I just think because they don't know what they're doing. And they're going through this whole change. Look at 590. What's going on at 590? New program director has not been hired yet.
Right.
It's been posted. Greg Sansoni's in charge of hiring the new program director,
right.
who's going to come in and do what? Keep all the same people? Clean house? Bring in his or her own favorites? Names, big names that are going to draw listeners? Or they're going to say, you know what? AM radio's dying. We're not going to draw anybody. Mike Boone's not going to listen. His kid's not going to listen. His grandkids won't listen when he has grandkids.
Yeah.
And so what are we bothering with this dead medium for? Like Morse code and smoke signals. Radio is going to go by the way of the dodo bird. I say radio, terrestrial radio. Audio? No, of course not.
Right.
Many, many ways to do audio. In fact, I'll tell the listeners right now, go ahead, send me a voice memo. Go ahead and record it on your phone. Hebsy, I think, da-da-da-da. Here's my opinion on this. I have a question. Record it, send it in to us. We'll run it on the air. And instead of me reading what you said, we'll hear your voice on the air. Like it's an actual phone call. Like, hello, you're on the air. Hi, Mark. Here's what I think of
Remind them
Shapiro and the BlueJays.
Remind them what your email address is.
markhebsher@gmail.com.
Okay, that's cool. I like that.
Right? And you can get us on social media, whatever, but send us voice memos. Send us some audio with your comments or your questions, and we'll add to it, make it as interactive as possible. You have to remember, I did a sports phone-in show for many years. It was the only sports phone-in show in the city of Toronto.
Advertised
There was
on
no all sports
subway
station.
on subway transfers.
The only one. So all the sports fans who wanted to talk, wanted to get stuff off their chest,
Right.
had ideas, opinions, suggestions, comments, they could only call me. I was the only one. I was the only avenue for them, the only forum. Now you've got all kinds on 2 stations. I had the only show. So I'm used to this. And if you're frustrated and you want to get your word out there, sometimes it doesn't work the same when it's on social media because 9 million people are posting their comments.
Right.
Let's hear what you have to say. All right.
Good idea.
So anyway, on this McCown podcast, and by the way, McCown, there was an article in The Athletic about McCown, like a couple weeks after the Globe did this big article. And McCown says that he had been offered, he said he had had talks with Sportsnet after they had let him go. And his suggestion was that they couldn't come to terms because of money, that they were not, and I remember I told you that.
Right. Right.
He wasn't going to go back for no money. There's no way he's going to take a job for half what he was making. People don't do that. Even if they have a $10 million home.
Some people do that, but not McCown, apparently.
You're right. He wouldn't do that. His suggestion was, and it was confirmed by Sean Fitzgerald, because Sean Fitzgerald had called Sportsnet to say, did you have discussions with Bob McCown after you had let him go? And the person at Sportsnet said yes, but they didn't go anywhere. And McCown also said that he had 2 offers from the United States. So good on him.
Yeah.
That's fine. The Athletic, a little late to the party. I mean, 2 weeks after the Globe did a great story. You know, I'm sure they went, geez, you got to get something on McCown.
Well, Berger had an interesting chat with McCown as well. So McCown's been making the rounds.
Yeah.
He'll do any show. He'll do any show except Toronto Mic'd, I think.
Yeah. You see, I don't understand that. He'll talk to everybody. Why not you?
Yeah,
I mean, if ever there was a show where you could lay it all out.
I know.
It's your podcast.
I had him on. Well, actually, I didn't even do it. Freddie did it, but he was on Humble and Fred yesterday. Like, he'll literally do any show right now. So if you want McCown on your show, hit him up. He'll do anything except Toronto Mic'd. Anyway.
All right. So Shapiro basically saying, yeah, we don't own Sportsnet. We have nothing to do with them, blah, 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 blah. As well, Shapiro was asked about Mickey Callaway.
Right.
Right. This guy's under investigation. This is a bad guy. Spent many years in the Indians organization under Shapiro and Ross Atkins. Callaway, the former Mets manager, who's now the pitching coach of the Angels, is under investigation by Major League Baseball for sexual harassment and other nefarious doings. Instead of asking Shapiro how he could not have known about Callaway's behavior when everybody else in the Indians organization had said it was the worst kept secret ever, McCown asked a softball question to which Shapiro answered, I'm bitterly disappointed in myself. I was completely unaware. I've got to be better. So he took ownership, but McCown didn't press him on that. Like, how could you know? How could Ross Atkins not know? He was responsible for hiring and promoting this guy through the Indian system. How did he not know? And by the way, Nick Francona, the adult son of Indians manager Terry Francona, called his father and others out on Twitter the other day, suggesting they knew all about Callaway's behavior, ignored it, and then endorsed him for the Mets manager's job. What the hell? And Atkins, for his part, said he was unaware of Callaway's behavior, and had he known, he definitely would have done something about it. So how does everybody in the organization know? And Shapiro and Atkins, we didn't know.
Great question, Hebsy.
And McCown should have followed up, and John Shannon, his co-host, with a tough question. What you're saving yourself? You don't want to upset Mark Shapiro because he won't come on your podcast next? Come on, you owe it to your listeners, your viewers. You're not associated with the Blue Jays anymore. The station you work for You don't work for them anymore. They have no association with the Blue Jays. They have no partnership with the Blue Jays. You have no sponsors that have partnerships with the Blue Jays. You have no affiliation with the Blue Jays whatsoever. Why can't you ask the question that everyone wants? Mark, how could you not know about Mickey? Everyone in the organization knew. Mark Shapiro, how could you and Ross Atkins not know? Seriously. Hold them to it.
Hebsy, you've conducted like 10,000 or so interviews in your life, in your career. My question is, have you ever had an interview where they said, these are the questions you cannot ask? Like, would you do an interview if you had a list of questions you weren't allowed to ask?
Never. And in fact, when I have, I still ask the question.
Yes, and even when because you're independent now, so now it's Hebsy on Sports.
Now, you have
but when you were at Global, you could do that and not have any like repercussions because you're a hired gun there.
Yeah, you're obliged to ask those questions as a journalist. That's your job. You're asking the question that you know your readers or listeners or viewers want to know.
Right.
That's why I loved listening to Howard Stern. He's a great interviewer. He asks the questions that everyone else is afraid to ask. They're afraid to ask because they're afraid the interviewee is going to look at them and give them the stare down, the icy stare, and they're going to tell their publicist, don't ever book me on the show again.
Right.
Because they weren't prepared, because they were told that they won't be asking this question, right?
Right.
And if anyone says, look, I want to know what the questions are, we refuse to even interview that person.
Right. Good.
Absolutely.
Good to hear.
And so, yeah, it's just different today, man. What was I saying?
Well, there's too many partnerships now. The problem is, let's say the publicist or the company or whatever that you're talking to this person also has a whole bunch of other people in the stable. And it's like, okay, you didn't listen to our request for this one. Now all these people are banned from your show and your platform and everything. Like, it's really just too much.
Didn't that happen with you?
I can't remember.
Come on. Didn't one of the publicists from one of the sports networks say nobody's going on that show without permission from us?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. In fact, it's funny because yesterday.
Who was it, Mike?
Well, there's a few, but Ben Ennis, for example, was literally on his way to my place, like leaving when his and I believe that was Dave Cadeau, actually, who's no longer there, but basically said, you can't do that show until Sportsnet PR approves it. So like he was on his way here and then he wrote me a note like, I'm really sorry, but I'm not allowed to come over. And it's happened with news people. Like it happened with John Moore, for example, from 1010. So it does happen periodically.
That's because they had to go through 4 levels of administration above them.
Right.
So in the case of Ben Ennis, he would have had to have gotten approval from his direct boss, Sportsnet PR,
right,
Rogers PR, possibly.
Well, yeah. Well, once
someone else, it would have to have gone from Rogers down to Sportsnet, down to someone else at Sportsnet to be the spokesperson to say, well, Hebsy, you must ask our permission.
When I got that note, because I was, I do my homework and I set aside the time and I'm ready for the guest, Ben Ennis, and he says, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed. I got on the phone with Sportsnet PR. Like I called them up right then and I said, what's this about? And then, long story short, he ended up about a month later, Ben Ennis was permitted to come visit me for Toronto Mike. But yeah.
You think he was told that there are certain things he shouldn't talk about, or if you were to ask him about stuff that was going on inside at the station that he had to
see, I don't know. He didn't tell me.
Advised by Sportsnet.
See, I'll say I don't play the game. Like if you tell me I don't want to talk about this, and that, I'm say, well, if there are any questions I was going to want to cover, like if it's something I didn't even like, whatever, I basically say, well, I'm afraid we can't do this because. I tell you, when Dave Hodge came over, real quick story, when he was here the first time, he looked at me when he sat down, he looked at me and he said, I don't want to talk about the pen flip. And I looked Mr. Hodge in the eyes and I said, I can't do this episode without asking you about the pen flip. And then I said, you can say what you want. You can say nothing, but I'm going to ask you about the pen flip. And then we did it. And he basically told me everything I wanted to know about the freaking pen flip. And then he came back several times later.
You had to challenge him. I don't want to talk about this. Why would I have you on the show, Dave, if I couldn't ask you about the pen flip?
Right.
If the situation was reversed and I had flipped the pen on national television, would you not ask me about it, Dave? And of course he would say, of course I would.
Right. It would be like having Hebsy on your program and Hebsy says, I'm not talking about Sportsline.
Not going to happen. All right. So Mike, on the weekend, I posted an article from 1985. Right, in the Toronto Star.
Right.
I just started at Global Television, and it was by Ken McKee. And I posted this article just to show people that may have remembered or may not have known how competitive the sportscasting business, the sports broadcasting business was in 1985 in the city of Toronto. 6 different stations had regular sportscasts.
Wow.
This was before Sportsnet even existed.
Right.
And TSN had just started. So you had CHCH TV, CFTO TV, which is CTV Toronto, TSN, brand new, Global Television Network, CBC, which is CBC Toronto, which was CBLT, the local affiliate, and City TV, which at the time I think was channel 79. No, it was channel 57. They just switched over.
Right.
And so you had 6 different sets of sportscasters, reporters. I'm going to say 30 on-air people in sports from those 6 stations.
Right.
Maybe more. If you include TSN, there's all kinds. But I mean, I'm talking about the scheduled sportscasts,
right,
which every one of them had during their 6 o'clock sports and late sports, 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, whatever time their local news went. There was a sports package as well.
Right.
And there was lots of other stuff. There were other types of shows that were sports related on these stations. You know, BlueJay specials or Leaf stories or
BlueJays banter.
Jays banter. That was CKCO in Kitchener.
Was it? I can't remember where I saw it, but I used to enjoy
Well,
it.
BlueJays banter was originally CKCO, and then it was syndicated. Yeah,
I got
so it was
you.
on
It was
all
on the CFTO, right?
All that stuff.
Right.
So I posted the article and got tremendous response from people. Oh, I remember this person.
Sure.
And I wrote down on it that the only person out of those pictures I showed that's still on TV regularly is Vic Rauter. And he was at CBLT at the time.
Right.
Angry at the time. And I think Ken Daniels came after him. And there's just so many people that fall into this category that may not have been there at that time. The George Brysons of the world, the Greg Manziuks.
Right.
These were good sportscasters who worked locally. And then after a while, the business kind of dried up. Sportscast got shorter and shorter and shorter. And then eventually everybody said, let's just bow down to TSN and Sportsnet. Let them do all the sportscasting. So there are no regular sportscasts on any of these stations except for one. Do you know which one that is, Mike?
Is there still, does CBC still do something? I feel they haven't. They should.
I don't think so.
Okay.
And they may, and I don't watch.
Then I don't
but
know.
But at 11:25 p.m.
Okay.
Weeknights on Global Television, the station that gave you Sportsline,
right,
and others. Global TV has a sportscast at 11:25. It's hosted by some dude in Calgary. He's new.
Okay.
He's not really very good. I'm sure he's cheap. I'm sure he does other things. But he's in Calgary, and he's anchoring a sportscast on Global in Toronto. Now, this is the same station, Global, that blew out their sports department. Rob Leth, Megan Robinson, Anthony Bruno, someone else, and I can't remember, and I apologize. But they had a decent sports department up until not too long ago.
Megan Robinson?
Yeah, I mentioned Megan.
Oh, sorry. My apologies.
You're not paying attention? Rob Leth, Megan Robinson, Anthony Bruno, and one other, and I can't think.
Okay.
Blew them all out and told them the reason we're getting rid of our entire sports department, no more sports on Global, because we're going to do hard news. So that's the explanation they got when the sports department was dissolved. Now, I know at least one of them was offered, I think at that time, if you're in the union, you can bump somebody in order to take a job in news. That's the way it works. You've been there a number of years. You can bump somebody in seniority and say, I want that job. I deserve that job. As opposed to, that's it, you're gone. And they didn't even offer them that. They just said, we're blowing up the sports department. And what happens? A few weeks later, some dude from Calgary is reading Global Sports. I thought you guys were getting out of the sports business.
Right.
What the hell?
Yeah, we're used to being deceived here. Was the name Asa Raymond?
That's it.
Okay.
Apologize for that. So you got that going on there. Sports departments are shrinking. Sports departments are shrinking in radio too. We don't know what's going to happen with the Fan 590. We have no idea what Greg Sansoni's going to do. Why didn't they hire Bob McCown back? I mean, apparently, according to McCown, there were talks.
Do re mi.
Gotta be, right?
The for sure the AM radio is being done on the dirt cheap right now, whenever possible.
No doubt. Okay. In golf, Corey Connors of Listowel, Ontario, was tied with Rory McIlroy for the lead at the Arnold Palmer Classic in Orlando. Both shot 6 under par 66s. I don't like that. 6 under 66. Too many sixes. The second round is going on as we speak in Orlando. I will not be providing any updates. The most difficult thing when you're doing a podcast is there's something going on at the time,
Right.
tennis match or golf or whatever, because it's, 10:30 in the morning here.
Right.
So there's golf going on. So I don't know what the scores are now. Check your local listings. What do they say? Check your local listings.
That's what they
Check
used to
your-
say. That's for
check the
movies,
Score
right?
app, which is what I use. Nick Taylor is the next best Canadian. He was 1 over after 18 holes. And you mentioned it off the top, Mike. Chris Schultz, 61 years of age, died of a heart attack. He was a former CFL and NFL player. Spent many years covering football on TSN. Always nice to me. Big guy, great sense of humor. He'll be missed. Rest in peace. Our heartfelt condolences to the Schultz family. And that is it. Episode 222 of HEBSY on Sports in the books. Thanks to Toronto Mike for production and inspiration. Hit him up at Toronto Mike. And don't forget to chime in with your thoughts on the show. You can write them in. That's cool. But give us a voice memo. Let's hear your voice. We'll put it on the air. If you're angry, sound angry. If you're happy, happy. If you've got legitimate beefs, complaints, comments, suggestions, ideas, send them along. Verbally. I don't want to have to read between the lines, especially if you've got lousy punctuation on your tweets or whatever. Use the voice memo. Let's hear your voice. Pretend it's a phone-in show. You can do that.
Like the good old
You
days.
can do anything like the good old days. And if you want to get in touch with me personally, markhebsher@gmail.com. Thanks for allowing us into your headspace. Back with another edition of HEBSY on Sports next week. Until then, so long for now. This podcast has been produced by TMDS and accelerated by Roam Phone. Roam Phone brings you the most reliable virtual phone service to run your business and protect your home number from unwanted calls. Visit roamphone.ca to get started.